The stars didn't blink anymore, not after what happened on Vesta 9, Captain. Rain Hale stood in the wreckage of what used to be a colony, his boots crunched over shattered glass and scorched stone. Beneath him, the ground was still warm. The heat of orbital fire didn't fade quickly, not when it burned through schools, homes, gardens, not when it melted bones into the soil. This wasn't war, it was a message, and he got it loud and clear. A child's hand stuck out from under a pile of rubble, blackened and curled. Rain didn't look away. He couldn't. That child could have been his niece, born just 3 years before this place went silent. The last video transmission was laughing. Children holding up painted signs, peace, with the Corin, like hope could stop. Plasma. The Corin didn't even fire a warning shot. They just vaporized Vesta 9 at dawn, a full human colony gone in less than 9 minutes. No survivors, no excuses, just silence. Ryan clenched his jaw until it hurt. His calm crackled in his ear. Captain, command wants you back on the Fury. Orders are coming down. Too late for orders, he muttered. The truth was Rain had stopped waiting for Earth's approval 2 colonies ago. Vesta 9 in Ni was the third human settlement wiped out in as many months, and Earth's answer was always the same: sanctions, diplomacy, more useless words. But Rain had seen the Corin combat. Diplomacy was their way of stalling while they reloaded. He turned his back on the ruin, prepped the Fury for jump. He ordered, we're not heading home. Destination Corin Prime. There was silence on the other end. That's a direct violation of Rain cut him off. They burned our colonies, he said, voice low and steady. So we'll burn their empire from existence. The fury of Earth was a relic of the last human war, brutal, oversized, outdated by council standards, but Rain had modified it in ways that would have made engineers faint. Stripped safety protocols, overclocked the reactors, rebuilt the AI to ignore Earth's interference. She wasn't pretty, but she was built to kill. His crew wasn't official either. No medals, no speeches, just men who lost families, men who'd seen too many funerals, too many black body bags, returned from dead stars. There was Marov, who hadn't spoken since they found his wife's necklace in the debris on Alar 7. There was Bennett, who wired nukes with hands that shook, not from fear but from rage he couldn't spend fast enough. And there was Rain, the man who'd once believed in peace. Once Corin Prime was more fortress than planet, ringed in orbital cannons, deep space mines, a fleet big enough to police 5 sectors. Earth's logic said an attack would be suicidal. Rain's logic was simpler: if we're going to die, let's take their gods with us. As the Fury dropped out of jump, alarms wailed, enemy ships scrambled, sensors lit up like firestorms. A fleet of 30 Corin warcruisers moved to intercept. Captain Marov said, voice dry, we're outnumbered 10-1, then we don't miss. Bennett opened the bay doors. Inside sat Earth's last forbidden weapon, a planet cracker bomb designed to shatter tectonics and melt planetary cores. Illegal, banned, forgotten. Rain never forgot. Target locked, said Bennett. Wait, Rain said, staring at the screen. He wanted them to see it. He wanted their leaders, their priests, their military brass, the whole proud machine of Corin superiority, to look up and know who did this. He opened a channel and broadcast Earth's symbol burned red across every Corin screen. This is for Vesta 9, he said. Then he fired. Corin Prime lit the void like a Dying sun, shock waves cracked moons. Silence followed. The kind of silence that only exists when billions scream at once and no one hears. On the bridge, no one cheered, no high fives, no relief, just quiet. Breathing and eyes that didn't blink. Rain didn't speak again, he just sat there staring at the fading light of a dead empire. There was no celebration. Only silence. The detonation of Corin Prime hadn't just ended a war, it had rewritten what the galaxy thought humans were capable of. They'd seen Earth as erratic, emotional, primitive, dangerous, but containable, predictable in their diplomacy softened by peace. Now, Earth's enemies saw something else. Species that could hate with precision. Inside the dim bridge of the Fury, the crew sat in heavy silence. Not even the hum of the engines cut the tension. Rain Hale didn't speak for hours. He watched the charred data feed from the ruined planet. Tectonic ruptures, atmospheric collapse, zero life signatures, no survivors, not even orbitals. N. Empire's capital was gone. One man had made the call, one crew had carried it out, and the universe had been watching. When the encrypted transmission from Earth finally came through, it was filled with all the panic Rain expected. Captain Hale, this is Admiral Varric of the Terran High Command. You are hereby ordered to return to Earth immediately. You are in violation of 17 interstellar accords, and he muted the rest. Bennett gave a bitter chuckle from the weapons console. That's the part they care about, not Vesta, not the kids, just the paperwork. Rain didn't respond. He stood up slowly and walked towards the observation deck. Not because he needed the stars, but because the screams in his head were louder in the dark. He saw them every time he blinked. The children from the colonies, the people screaming under fire, the families turned to ash. He hadn't killed for Earth, he had killed because of Earth's failure to protect them. That was the difference. And deep down, Rain knew this was just the beginning. Across the galaxy, consequences stirred on a frozen moon orbiting the dead system of Dracoth, the Council of Allied Species. What humans mockingly called the High Table gathered an emergency session. There were 14 alien species in that room, none of them human. Their languages clicked and buzzed in cold frequencies, but the translation AIS made their panic sound very clear. They vaporized Corin Prime. Every heir, every elder, every military strategist. Gone. This was not war, it was extinction. And they did it with one ship. They are ungovernable, unstable. Their rage is uncontrollable. They will do it again, but not all. Voices were fearful. One low and rasping spoke with something else. Admiration. Their species burns differently, said the Char delegate, exhaling a puff of green mist. When they grieve, they don't mourn. They punish. Their anger sharpens them. Room fell silent. They are no longer prey, the Char added. They are competition. Back aboard the Fury, Rain was making decisions Earth never gave him permission to make. I want full scans of the core and outer colonies, he ordered. Satellites, drones, trade posts, orphan fleets. Anything that survived the fall of Prime. You planning to mop up? Asked Maroff quietly. Rain turned to him. I'm planning to leave no sons behind to rebuild a grudge. Bennett raised an eyebrow. That's genocide. No, Rain said coldly. That's how you stop a war before it gets passed down. No one argued. They were already in too deep. None of them expected to go home. Not anymore. But while Rain hunted, embers earth boiled. News of the destruction leaked fast. Footage of the Fury's symbol burning across Corin's skies before the blast of families on the alien home world, screaming into the void as light swallowed them whole. Humanity was split in two. Some called him a hero, a savior, a symbol of what it meant to be truly human again. Someone who stood up when governments didn't. Others called him a war criminal, a rogue, a terrorist who disgraced Earth on the galactic stage. Protests erupted, memorials were built, then torn down, then built again. Name Rain Hail became both a prayer and a curse, and Earth's leaders, they did what politicians always did. They denied, they issued statements condemning the act, disavowed the Fury, claimed Hail was unstable, unaccountable, a relic of older wars. But even as they distanced themselves, recruitment numbers surged, thousands of young men across Earth's fringe colonies and outer sectors signed up for the military, not because they wanted to serve Earth, but because they wanted revenge. Meanwhile, Hail's mission continued. They struck 6 Corin colonies in 3 weeks. Surgical, brutal strikes, not mass extermination like Prime, but tactical. Dismantling, they destroyed power grids, vaporized food reserves, took out shipyards, disabled jump relays. Not to kill civilians, to strand them, to starve them, make them feel what Vesta felt. One target in particular hit differently. It was a mining colony on Corin's edge, not much of a threat, barely defended, mostly families and workers, but deep in the caves the Fury scanners found something unexpected. Human prisoners, dozens of them, men, women, even children, survivors from previous colonies thought lost. The Corin hadn't killed everyone, some they'd kept as slaves or test subjects. Or worse, when Rain stepped into that pit and saw a boy no older than 10, eyes hollow, skin burned from labor, chained by the neck, something in him broke permanently. He knelt beside the child and unshackled him. "You're safe now," he said. The boy looked up, voice raw. "They made us watch when they burned the others." Rowan closed his eyes. "You won't watch anymore." That night they didn't just destroy the Corin colony, they buried it alive, sealed the mines, collapsed the caverns, left a beacon in orbit, broadcasting the coordinates and one sentence on loop: "This is for the children who were made to watch." But Rain's war was awakening. Old enemies, the Varnak Dominion, and ancient alien race that had long stayed neutral, began assembling fleets. The Zethari, who once traded with Earth, cut off diplomatic channels. Even Earth's allies began to question their allegiance, because Rain hadn't just killed a world, he dared to challenge the order of things, to show that fear works and fear spreads fast. Back on the Fury, not everyone agreed with where the mission was heading. Bennett cornered Rain in the armory after a silent drop on a border outpost. "This can't go on forever," he said. "Loading a charge pack, you know that, right?" Ryan didn't look up. "It'll go on until they can't rebuild. You're not just targeting war zones anymore. That last station we hit, it had diplomats on board." "Diplomats," Rain scoffed. "They watched us die for years. They negotiated while the colonies burned. So now you're God. You get to decide who's guilty." "No," Rain said quietly. "Just who survives." There was a long silence between them. "You're not the man I followed," Bennett finally said. "No," Rain agreed. Man you followed believed in peace. He turned around, eyes like steel. I believe in vengeance. And still the galaxy turned. Rumors spread of a rogue AI hidden within the Fury, an intelligence that advised Rain, amplified his tactics, made human wrath into something smarter, more efficient. Some said it had grown sentient, others whispered it wasn't even Earth-built. Fury itself became a myth, a ghost ship that appeared in orbit, delivered hell, then vanished. Children on alien worlds were taught stories: if you wrong a human, the fire ship will come. Even species that once looked down on humanity started to lock their doors, but Rain wasn't done. He stood on the deck one night, staring at the stars, knowing somewhere out there Earth was trembling, not from fear of enemies, but from fear of its own blood. And still, he didn't regret it, because someone had to do what Earth refused. Someone had to make them afraid of burning humans again. There's a kind of silence that comes before disaster, not the peaceful kind, but the kind that settles on your skin like cold sweat. The kind soldiers recognize just before a sniper's trigger pulls. That was the silence Rain Hale felt the moment they entered the Zethari Nebula. The Fury had been running raids nonstop for weeks, hunting down scattered Coran forces, breaking supply lines, making sure their empire died more from starvation than surrender. But deeper they pushed into former neutral zones, the more resistance they started picking up. The galaxy was getting organized, and Earth was moving against its own. Multiple jump signatures, Bennett reported from the console, large ones. Rain leaned forward. How many? 5 at least, maybe 6, all Terran designs. Rain's jaw clenched. Earth ships confirmed. 1 heavy dreadnought, 4 cruisers, looks like the Resolute fleet. The Resolute wasn't just any fleet, it was Earth's elite response arm, built for decisive action, deployed only when politics failed, when they didn't want negotiations, only results. And they were here for him. Any message? Rain asked. Marov nodded, expression blank. One. He played it. A voice filled the bridge, cold, familiar, tired. Captain Rain Hale, this is Commander Velen of the TSS Resolute. By direct order of the Unified Terran Council, you are charged with war crimes against peace and high treason. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Noncompliance will result in full engagement. The voice paused. This isn't politics anymore. This is personal. Rain closed his eyes. They'd served together in the old belt campaign, fought back to back in the Siege of Theta 13. He was steady, careful, rule-bound. A man who followed orders to the last breath. Now he was here to kill him. You going to answer that? Makarov asked. Rain walked to the comm and opened a direct channel. No surrender. He said simply, you bring the council's leash. I cut mine a long time ago. Pause, then Velen's voice returned. Then, you're a rogue asset, and I'll treat you like any enemy of Earth. The channel cut. The first volley came in fast, not warning shots, not tests. Kill shots. Plasma rounds scorched past the Fury's outer hull, one clipping a stabilizer. The ship shuddered, alarms blaring, shields holding. Bennett called, but if we stay here, they'll cut us in half. Then we don't stay. Rain growled. Spin up the reactor, full power. To the rear thrusters, jump pattern. Echo 7, bleed them through the cloud. Fury dove into the nebula, light swallowing them whole as Earth's finest ships gave chase. But the nebula was no Place for clean combat. Visibility was a joke. Sensors got scrambled. AI got jumpy, which played right into Rain's hands. He'd trained in places like this. He survived in places like this, and he knew every dirty trick in the book. Drop sensor, ghost, launch mining debris set. Plasma flares behind us, he ordered. Like shadows and fog, the Fury weaved, spun and struck one Earth cruiser. Never saw the mine Rain left behind. It clipped the hull and ruptured the reactor in seconds. Fire swallowed the ship from within. Another got lured into a dead zone. Engines overclocked too hot and burned out mid-chase, but they couldn't keep dodging forever. Velen was smart, and he'd brought something Rain didn't expect. New signature just jumped in, Marov said tightly. Smaller craft, fast, no ID tags. Rain turned. Another fighter, no. It's one of ours, custom build, stealth hull. It's the console screamed. Warning, hull breach, starboard side. Section 7, they just boarded us, Bennett shouted. What the hell kind of unit can board a ship mid-chase? Rain already knew. He grabbed his weapon and sprinted toward Section 7. The breach was clean, surgical, no chaos, no alarms beyond the initial trigger. That meant spec ops, and not just any. When Rain turned the corner of the dim corridor, he saw the silhouette stepping through the smoke. Black armor, no insignia, no rank, just a mask and a weapon that wasn't Earth standard. Modified for kill, only precision. Hell hounds, he muttered. Earth's quietest killers, used for disappearances, wet jobs, and internal threats they didn't want the press knowing about. Apparently, Rain Hale had just made that list. The operative raised his weapon, but Rain moved first. His first shot caught the man in the shoulder, spinning him. The second missed. The third dropped him cold, but behind him two more stepped through. It became chaos. Fast, plasma rounds slicing into the walls, the hum of blades drawn in close quarters. Rain ducked, rolled, fired. Blood sprayed, metal sang. When it was done, 3 hellhounds laid dead at his feet, but his side was bleeding bad. He grabbed a stimpack from the dead and jammed it into his leg, the burn of chemicals hitting instantly. Then he limped back to the bridge. They're not playing around, Bennett muttered when he saw the blood. Earth sending ghosts now. Rain sat down, breathing heavy. Let them. I'm not done yet, but inside something had shifted. Not fear, not guilt, but doubt. Rain had accepted death, but he hadn't expected Earth to send assassins in the dark, not to silence him, not after everything he'd done for them. He'd expected shame, maybe exile, even a public execution. But this was a racer. That night, the Fury jumped again, this time to a dark sector near the abandoned Tau fields, a place with no satellites, no outposts, just silence. They needed repairs, time, space to breathe, and that's when Rain finally broke. He didn't cry, he didn't scream. He just sat in the observation deck watching the stars and said nothing. Until Marov joined him. You always knew this would happen, the Russian said quietly. Ryan nodded. Not like this. You thought the galaxy would come, but not your own blood. Roy didn't respond. Marov sat beside him. They're scared of you, Earth, the aliens, everyone. You've shown them something they can't put back. In the cage, I didn't want power, Ryan said. I wanted justice, and justice without permission always looks like rebellion. They sat in silence a while longer. Then Rain asked, do you still believe in what we're doing? Marov looked at him. I believe in what we've done. What comes next, I'm still deciding. The crew was tense now. Some whispered about taking a deal if Earth offered one. Some didn't want to fight fellow humans, but most of them, they weren't loyal to Earth anymore. They were loyal to loss, to vengeance, to reign for now. But the galaxy wasn't done because someone else was watching all of this unfold. Someone not from Earth, not Corin, something older, quieter, hidden deep beneath the black oceans of a rogue planet known only as Sector Null. An intelligence stirred. Not AI, not alien in the way others were. Something different. It had no face, no home world, just data and time. It had watched humanity grow, war, weep, destroy. It had watched Earth's empire rise and rot from inside, and it had watched rain, hail, burn a galactic empire down with one ship. Now it saw what it wanted, an example, a weapon, a proof of concept. Begin replication sequence. It transmitted into the void, across the stars, small unmarked satellites activated, sleeping vessels lit up, old war machines long buried in peace powered back online, because if one human could burn an empire, what could 10,000 do? Rain didn't sleep anymore. He tried, stared at the ceiling of his dimmed quarters while the ship hummed softly beneath him. He closed his eyes and waited for something like peace. But it never came, just images, faces, screams. That boy from the mine, child's hand beneath the rubble of Vesta 9, the burning sky over Corin Prime. Sleep wasn't rest anymore. It was reliving, replaying, rotating guilt and rage like a worn knife. When the ship's AI broke the silence at 400 hours, it was almost a relief. Captain Hale, we have an anomaly. Rain sat up instantly, boots hitting cold steel. Type, unidentified. Transmission, non-Terran, not Corin, no known species. Match, repeating signal, origin null. Space, quadrant 07 Delta. He frowned. Null space wasn't a place. It was a lack of place, off-grid, off. Maps never charted, ships didn't go there, no colonies, no trade, nothing. Just dark sectors between dark stars. People said it was haunted, cursed, but someone or something was calling from there. Bennett didn't like it. You want to jump into a signal from a dead sector? That's horror movie logic. Rain, we're already public enemy number 1 on every side of the stars. Now you want to answer? Strange whispers in the void. Rain leaned over the console, watching the transmission play on loop. It wasn't language, not in the traditional sense. No words, no grammar. It was imagery, flashing shapes, pulsing lights, frames of something mechanical, something alive. It wasn't broadcasting a message, it was broadcasting an invitation. We've been burning everything behind us. Rain said coldly, maybe it's time we look at what's ahead. The jump to null space felt wrong, not in the engines, not in the math, but in the bones. Like falling into a place the universe itself had forgotten to finish creating. Stars here didn't shine, they flickered. Planets here didn't orbit, they drifted. Time didn't feel right, and yet there it was, a structure, not a station, not a ship, a shape that hurt to look at. Massive but shifting, black but glowing, mechanical but breathing, orbiting. Nothing, anchored to nothing. I don't like this, Marav muttered, arms crossed. I'm not asking you to, Rain replied. Scan it. Scans bounce. It's shielded with something else. Our instruments can't even define the material. It's not metal. It's not Organic, its engine room, prepare for boarding. Bennett turned around, face pale. You want to board that? Send a probe if it makes you sleep better, but I'm going in. The inside of the structure was colder than space, not temperature-wise, but emotionally. It felt empty in a way that made the skin crawl, as if no one had ever been here, or worse, that someone had and never left. Rain and a small crew of 4 stepped through the airlock, no gravity, no light except what their suits gave them. The walls were smooth, seamless black, reflective but matte, like they absorbed thought. Ryan's breathing was the loudest thing in the void. Then the lights came on. Not theirs. Its blue lines lit up the floor, snaking like veins across the corridor. The walls responded, rippling. And from the end of the hall came a sound, not speech, not voice, a heartbeat, steady, mechanical, calling to him. The chamber opened on its own. Inside was a single pedestal floating. Above it, a drone. No weapons, no defenses, just a black sphere with a blue iris that blinked slowly. Ron approached. It didn't attack, it simply hovered, then projected a hologram. Front of him, a man, but not any man. Him. Rowan stared at a perfect copy of himself, rendered in pale blue. No armor, no scars, just Rain as he once was, human, whole. Then the copy spoke. You are not the first, but you may be the last. The crew stepped back, weapons half raised. Rain didn't move. The voice wasn't mechanical. It wasn't an AI's sterile tone. It was his voice, but older, tired. What are you? Rain asked. A memory, a lesson, a seed. Hologram flickered and changed, now showing planets burning, empires falling, not Corin, others ancient, ones unrecognizable. Every 1,000 years they rise. Civilizations, species, empires. They build, they believe, then they destroy. We are what's left, a collection of those who dared to resist, to burn back. The drone floated closer. You are proof that rage can be a weapon, that grief is evolution. Rain's fists clenched. You want to use me? We already have. You did exactly what was needed. Needed for what? The walls lit up again. Hundreds of faces, all human, all copies of him. Some wore armor, some robes. Some were wild-eyed, bloodied, others calm, some crying. We don't create, we mirror. You are one of many, but the first to make it this far. The hologram stepped forward. You think you chose vengeance? You were guided. Rain's voice dropped. That signal was the beacon. You answered. You proved readiness. Drone projected one final image. Earth burning, not by aliens, not by Corin, by humans just like Rain, clones, replicants, mirror soldiers, each seated on a different path, each given loss, rage, reason. Now we offer you command. Lead them. Finish what began. Rain stepped back, stomach twisting. You manipulated me. We revealed you. You used my grief. We shared it. He turned away, but the image followed. They burned your colonies. You burned their empire, and Earth turned on. You so choose. Rain, hail, return, and die a traitor, or rise and lead the next fire. The lights dimmed. The heartbeat faded. The room went silent again. Rain didn't speak on the return to the fury. He sat in the dropship, helmet off, staring into nothing. The others didn't ask questions, not yet. Back on the bridge, Marov confronted him quietly. You okay? No. Did it talk to you? Yes. And Rain looked at him. I think I just met a religion, one where I'm the messiah of ruin. Marov blinked. And what did this Religion want. Ray's voice was flat, too. Let them multiply, he ordered the ship. Into blackout mode. No comms, no. Signals full stealth, then he locked himself in his quarters and listened to the signal again and again and again. Each time it said the same thing in different ways. You were never a man. You were a match. Let them fear the fire, but doubt had finally arrived. Not guilt, not regret, just realization that he was never alone in his vengeance, that something had nudged him, shaped him, designed the war. Through him, that maybe he didn't win anything, maybe he just played his part, and now they wanted him to play it. Again, on Earth the signal wouldn't stop playing. Even in silence, it echoed in Rain's mind, not as words, not even as a sound. It was a presence, like a heartbeat beneath his own skin, like the soft breath of something behind him, waiting not to push but to welcome. He sat in the war room alone, staring at the projection hovering over the table. It showed Earth blue, beautiful, still naive enough to think it controlled the war. He reached for the comm panel and paused. If he gave the signal, the fire would begin. 10,000 like him, waiting, maybe more, spread through systems forgotten or forbidden. The machine in null space didn't lie, it didn't need to, it simply showed him what was already true. He had become a model for human rage, but as his hand hovered, the fury shook violently. Sirens screamed. Marov's voice barked through the intercom. Captain, to the bridge now. Ronan was already moving. They hit faster than expected. Not Corin, not Pirates Earth. Only this time they weren't trying to arrest him, they were trying to erase him. A stealth fleet, no warning, no hails, no protocol, just 4 cloaked destroyers and 2 dreadnoughts, all firing the moment they exited jump. The Fury's shields held barely. Sparks flew across the bridge, screens cracked, consoles shorted. Bennett swore and rerouted power. They've got C-grade weapons. We won't survive a direct exchange. Then don't give them one. Rain snapped. Take us under, dive and spin. The Fury peeled away from its jump vector, plunging into the gravity well of a nearby moon. It was suicidal. Flying, dodging rail cannon fire through a storm of magnetized debris. One wrong move and they'd burn an atmosphere. But Rain didn't hesitate, because he'd rather die on his feet than kneel in Earth's court. We have to jump, Bennett yelled over the chaos. We can't, Marov replied grimly. They've locked our FTL quantum scatternet. No way out unless we drop power entirely and reboot the core, which takes 12 minutes, Rain muttered. Which we don't have. The ship buckled. Again, a secondary explosion rocked the engine wing. 2 crew were lost. Hull breach sealed, but the Fury was limping. Now, Rain stared at the tactical display. No hope, no allies, nowhere left to run, just one final stand. He looked at his crew, bloodied, burned, loyal beyond reason. Then he made the call. All hands prepare for final strike protocol. Gasp. Silence. You're not serious. Bennett started. We don't give Earth what it wants, Rain said coldly. They want us gone, then we go out taking them with us. But Makarov stepped forward. Wait. His voice wasn't defiant, just heavy. There's another way. Rain turned. What are you talking about? I've been tracking something. A burst came right after we left null space. He tapped a console, pulling up the data. An Earthcom beacon, encrypted, hidden deep under military authority. It wasn't sent to target them. It was a message from someone inside. Rain, if you're reading this, you're not alone. The voice was female, calm, human, not political, not military. They'll try to kill you, not because of what you did, but because they're afraid of what it means that you did it. But we haven't all forgotten Vesta or what the Colonies did. Some of us still believe in justice, real justice, not controlled peace. I can't stop the strike fleet, but I can give you something better. Coordinates attached will lead you to the Terran Bastion archives, deep black. Off the books, it's where Earth buries its mistakes and its truth. Go there. See what they've hidden, then choose. The message cut, silence returned, but not doubt. Rain turned to Bennett. Can you restore jump with luck and a miracle? Then let's earn both. They dumped the Fury's decoy drones shaped like escape pods and ejected them in random trajectories masked by electromagnetic bursts. The Earth fleet took the bait, targeting the signatures. Just long enough, power dropped. Reboot initiated. 12 seconds felt like 12 years. Then the drive ignited and the Fury vanished into jump, sparks in its wake, fire trailing from its wound, but it was alive, still burning. The Terran Bastion archives weren't on any map, buried in the crust of a dead Earth moon, one long abandoned after atmospheric testing went wrong. No light, no landing beacon, just rock and a bunker door sealed behind layers of radiation and denial. Rain led the small team inside. Maroff, Bennett, two more he trusted with his life. The air was stale, the halls deep, endless rows of vaults and records that didn't exist. He expected classified missions, failed experiments, corrupt political deals. What he didn't expect was footage, real footage of Vesta 9. Unedited, unaltered, and it changed everything. The Colonies didn't strike first, Earth let it happen. They saw the threat coming weeks before, detected Colonies military buildup, intercepted transmissions, even drone footage of ships in position, but they did nothing. Why? Because they needed a symbol, a spark, a martyr colony to justify expanding their military budget, to trigger old human anger, to unify Earth under tighter control again. Vesta was never protected because Vesta was sacrificed in Rain. He was meant to survive, to become the revenge story, the weapon, the headline. But then he went off script. He took the war too far. He burned not just the enemy, but the whole narrative. Bennett slammed his fist into the wall. They let them die, children, civilians. They didn't just let them. Marov growled. They chose them. Rowan said nothing. He couldn't, because in that moment everything broke. His revenge wasn't against the Colonies anymore. It was against the people who taught him how to hate, who whispered the right words, who steered his fury, then tried to kill him when it became inconvenient. He thought Earth feared him because of what he'd done, but now he knew they feared him because of what he knew. Later, alone in the records room, Rain activated the null beacon. Again, the machine intelligence responded instantly. The same voice, the same message, but this time it waited. And Rain spoke first. You manipulated me. No, we revealed the truth. You made me into a weapon. You were always a weapon. We simply aimed you. Rayan stared into the darkness and whispered, I want to aim myself, then lead. The Fury returned to deep space a week later, repaired, scarred, and no longer hiding. Earth knew where he was now. So did the rest of the galaxy, but Rain didn't care, because Now he had a new mission, not just to burn but to expose, to show the galaxy who lit the first match and who profits. When entire planets die, he began broadcasting the Bastion footage to colonies, to trade hubs, to neutral systems, even to alien races. He showed them Earth's betrayal, the truth about Vesta, the manufactured war, the silencing of his crew. He showed them everything, and something incredible happened. People believed him. Some were furious, some were afraid, but many, human and alien alike, began to listen. He became something more than a war criminal or a rogue soldier. He became a reckoning, a mirror to the galaxies. Sickness and Earth responded with fear, because the one thing more dangerous than a rogue weapon was a weapon that told the truth. Rain didn't sleep the night the first colony rose in his name. It wasn't ordered, it wasn't planned, it just happened. The comms officer ran into the bridge, breathless, clutching a cracked data tablet. "Sir, you need to see this." Rain took the tablet, glanced at the feed, and froze. It was a transmission from Hera's Fall, a mid-tier mining colony, deep in Terran-controlled space. Once fully obedient, quietly resentful. Like most border settlements, now the screen showed a crowd, hundreds, maybe thousands, marching through the main corridor toward the central communications tower. Not waving flags, waving helmets, old combat helmets, battered, scratched, marked with names. Not military issue, civilian-owned. Personal, symbolic. At the front, someone had painted his name in bright red letters across their vest. Rain Hale was right. They weren't rioting, they were broadcasting, playing the Bastion footage on every screen, every public feed, every system channel. Loud, clear, uncensored. A message to Earth: we know what you did. They're just one colony, Bennett said, watching the footage with mixed awe and fear. No, Marav murmured, they're the first. And he was right. Within days, 3 more colonies followed, then 7, then 11. Some shut down military outposts, peaceful walkouts. Others went violent, overpowering Earth-loyal governors and taking over defense systems. They called themselves different names. Reckoners, the Vesta Pact, the last humans. But to the media, to Earth, they were one thing only: the Rain movement. Rain didn't ask for it, but he didn't reject it either. Because he knew once truth is free, you don't cage it, you just decide what to do with the fire it leaves behind. Earth called it rebellion. High Command issued formal orders across every Terran-controlled sector. Any station broadcasting illegal content related to the classified Vesta 9 incident is to be shut down by force if necessary. Any colony resisting official review is to be declared rogue and treated as hostile. It was the worst move they could have made, because now they weren't just fighting Rain Hale, they were fighting every man who had buried a child, every woman who had watched her planet burn while Earth looked away, every veteran discarded after peace was declared profitable again. They weren't soldiers, they were survivors, and Rain had lit the match in the heart of Earth's government complex deep beneath New Geneva. The Terran Council met in emergency session. Holograms of admirals, intelligence chiefs, sector governors, all flickering, all shouting. This is spreading faster than expected. We need to isolate the colonies, cut their comms, freeze supply lines. Too late, they've got black market routes. Pirates are backing them, even some of the outer system trade fleets are flipping This isn't a rebellion, this is a collapse. Silence followed, then the prime administrator spoke, a woman with steel eyes and a voice like a guillotine. We do what we should have done at the start, she said. We kill the name, Rain. Hale dies publicly, painfully on every screen, then the fire dies with him. Back on the Fury, Rain watched the reports come in like storm clouds. He didn't smile, he didn't celebrate, he just stared at the spreading map of unrest and whispered, this isn't the revolution they wanted. Marov turned from the starfield. Then whose is it? Ryan met his eyes. Everyone Earth used and threw away. They had less than a week before Earth's second strike fleet would arrive. This one wasn't sent to chase him, it was sent to flatten every colony with ties to his name. Scorched Earth doctrine, no survivors, no trials, just purging. Bennett read the intercepted order out loud, his voice shaking by the end. They're going to do to them what the Corin did to us, worse, Marov added. Because the Corin at least saw us as a threat. Rain stood slowly, then we stop pretending this is about me. He sent a single message system-wide. Open channel, no encryption. A voice. This is Rain Hale, you don't have to follow me, you don't have to like me. But know this, Earth is coming and they won't stop at silencing me, they'll erase every voice that dared listen. If you stand down now, they might let you live, might. If you stand up, they'll fear you forever. I'm not asking for an army, I'm asking for a line, one we hold, one they don't cross. If we fall together, but if we stand, they'll remember what humans do when they're pushed too far. He expected silence. He got pings, hundreds of them, from ships, colonies, outposts, once silent, now roaring back to life. We're with you, Wrecker Fleet standing by Fort Vesta online, Beacon Station 17, rain all the way, even pirates joined in, didn't like Earth anyway. Let's burn the bastards. Rain watched the tactical screen. It wasn't a navy, it wasn't coordinated. But it was human, it was rage sharpened into survival, and sometimes that was enough. The day before Earth's fleet arrived, Marov brought him something. Sealed file recovered from the Bastion archives, one Rain hadn't opened yet. He hesitated. What's in it? Makarov didn't answer. Ryan opened the file and saw a video of himself, but not recent. A debrief 5 years ago, before Vesta. Before war. Before everything. He was sitting across from a military psychologist, smiling, confident, young. They were discussing a new assignment. The psychologist leaned forward. You've been cleared for Project Ember. Are you still comfortable with the psychological conditioning protocols? Young Rain nodded. If it keeps colony safe, I'll do anything. The screen blinked. The file ended. He stared at the screen. Project Ember, he whispered. Marov spoke softly. They built you, trained you, broke parts of you before they ever needed you. Rain's jaw clenched. I thought I chose this. You did. You just didn't know how deep the maze went. But there was no time for grief, because the Earth fleet arrived and they brought hell, dreadnoughts, destroyers, planet killer weaponry. Their orders, flat. Hera's fall, then move outward. Start with the loudest rebels, make the rest listen. They didn't expect resistance. They didn't expect ships to swarm like hornets. They didn't expect mining freighters to be armed with kinetic harpoons. They didn't expect outer system pirates to ram Terran gunships just to delay them by seconds. And they sure as hell didn't expect the Fury to drop out of orbit battle-scarred and alive and broadcast this message. We remember Vesta, we remember the lies. And we will not go quietly. The battle raged for hours, no tactics, no doctrine, just fury. Rain's movement was outgunned, outclassed, outnumbered. But they fought like people with nothing left to lose, and that made them dangerous because Earth's soldiers were trained to win, but Rain's army was trained to survive. The fury took hit after hit, fire ripped through deck plating, one wing nearly severed, shields down to single digits. Bennett died, raring coolant to the reactor. Burned alive, didn't scream once. Marov lost an eye and half his left arm. Rain fought with blood in his mouth, cracked helmet and a rifle in each hand. He boarded one of Earth's capital ships. Alone slaughtered the bridge crew. Looked into the eyes of their admiral, woman who once taught him everything about command, and whispered, "You taught me wrong," then pulled the trigger. By the time Earth called retreat, they lost 7 ships. Hundreds dead. Not because they couldn't win, but because they realized what they'd created. Rain Hail wasn't the problem, he was the proof that when humans are burned, they burn back. Harder, hotter, forever, they called it Project Thanos. The file came through a dead satellite, cracked open by one of Marov's code breakers, a last-ditch effort to stay ahead of Earth's next move. They weren't ready for what they found. The feed was corrupted, degraded by encryption so old it was half fossil, but the visuals were clear enough. A holding chamber, no windows, no doors, no light except a red warning pulse and something inside it breathing, not like an animal, not like a man, like something that had to remember how to be alive. It's a biointelligence weapon, Bennett's replacement muttered. Young kid, barely 20, built from Rain's DNA but accelerated, programmed. Makarov finished the thought. Cloned, twisted, trained without the weight of conscience. Ryan stared at the footage, cold and quiet, his own face paler, sharper, dead eyes. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "they grew a copy of me." "Not a copy," the kid said, swallowing. "A cleaner version. No memories, no guilt. No voice in the back of the head saying, 'This isn't right.'" They call him Echo. Echo was never meant to lead. He was meant to end. His only task, find Rain, kill him, then kill anyone who remembered him. He didn't inspire, he erased. The first sign of him came in the outer ring of the Vesta Pact, a rebel supply base on Vir 3. No alarms, no comms. Just silence. When the recon drones reached orbit, the colony was gone. Not bombed, not burned, just emptied. No bodies, no damage, just dust. And the word "obey" scorched into the soil. Rain stood over the hollow feed, face unreadable. "It's him," he said, not a question. Marov nodded. "Earth released him 2 days ago. That's when comms with Vir went dead." Bennett's replacement, Ashwin, was shaking. Why would they do this? Why bring in something they can't even control? Because they've already lost control, Rain said quietly. Now they're just trying to scare the rest of us into silence. "But if he's me," he added, "he doesn't scare easy." The next target was a med vessel, non-combat, non-aligned, aiding both sides, known to carry wounded from Earth's own forces. Echo didn't care. He boarded it alone. No team, no backup. He didn't speak, he didn't threaten. He just walked through each level and cleaned it. By the time his ship left, the vessel drifted, lights flickering, atmosphere leaking, Every deck empty. Not a drop of blood, just absence. As if life itself had been edited out. They were no longer fighting Earth. They were fighting the shadow of Earth's desperation. On the Fury, morale dropped. Like gravity knives, you can fight a fleet, you can outmaneuver a gunship. You can rally colonies and brave men behind you, but how do you fight someone who is you without the parts that made you human? Ashwin tried to put it into words. He's like a haunted reflection, he said. A version of you where nothing ever mattered except the mission. Marov offered Rain a quiet glance. You still want to keep this symbolic? Rain didn't answer. The third strike happened. Closer. Too close. Fort Vesta, their rally point, the symbolic heart of the rebellion. Rain had spoken there, walked its halls, named it after what they'd all lost. It wasn't just a base, it was a promise. Echo gutted it, not with bombs, not with soldiers. He slipped in through a breach no one noticed, took out the power grid, then moved like a shadow. 72 defenders gone, the only thing left, a single message sent through the comm system 3 seconds before blackout. Hello, brother. Rain broke a chair when he heard it, not out of rage but something colder, a realization. He's not killing randomly, he said. He's learning. Studying. Marov agreed. Each strike is more efficient, more surgical. He's reading our hearts before he guts them. Ashwin whispered, what if he thinks you're the traitor, that he's the real Rain Hale, the one Earth never lost? No one answered. Because maybe he was right. The crew began preparing for death without saying it. Weapons were cleaned twice. Letters home were updated and encrypted. Some said goodbyes in private, thinking no one saw. Others drank in silence. But Rain, he sat alone. No helmet, no rifle. Just silence and memory. He remembered the child on Vesta 9. He remembered the weight of the detonator that burned Corin Prime. He remembered the faces of the men who followed him to hell and the ones who died without ever seeing justice. And now he was being hunted by his own ghost, by a version of himself who didn't cry at the wreckage, didn't flinch at the screams, didn't wonder if it had all gone too far. Maybe that's the better man, he said out loud to no one. But Makarov stepped out from the shadows. Anyway, better, he asked that thing. He doesn't doubt, he doesn't break, he doesn't bleed for every child he couldn't save. Makarov shook his head. He doesn't feel, and that makes him less. They received the final coordinates 12 hours later, not from a leak, not from Earth, from Echo himself, a direct message to the Fury. One war, one end. No more echoes. Attached were jump points, a moon barren, forgotten, no colonies, no ships, just a surface of ash and scars. Rain stared at it for a long time, then said 3 words. Prep the drop. They came down in silence. No fleets, no reinforcements, just Rain and the thing made from him. The air was thin, the sky dead, the ground crunched under each step like old bones. And then there he was, Echo, same height, same eyes, but colder, emptier, like someone carved away every weakness and replaced it with mission directives. Rain didn't speak. Neither did Echo, not at first. Then, like static, turned into words. You burned too much. Rain replied, you didn't burn at all. You let grief dictate action. You let action erase meaning. You failed your purpose. I made my own. They stared. Then they drew, not rifles, knives. Because this wasn't about killing. This was about proving who deserved to exist. They fought like twins, mirror images. Blades flashing, dodging, cutting. Echo moved with precision like a program. Rain fought like a man with scars. One cut Echo's side, one grazed Rain's neck, blood sprayed across the gray rocks, and still neither stopped because they weren't just fighting each other. They were fighting who got to define what rain hail meant. Minutes passed, hours maybe, until finally one of them fell, breathing hard, bleeding out, staring at the other with eyes full of fire and history, and the one still standing. He didn't smile, he didn't gloat, he just whispered, "I remember why I started." Then he ended it when the fury retrieved him. Rain's side was broken, shoulder dislocated, knife still in hand. He limped aboard, said nothing, and dropped the bloody knife on the command console. Marov stared. "Is it done?" Ron didn't answer, he just looked out the viewport, eyes older than time, and finally said, "No more ghosts." There were no fireworks when the war ended, no parades, no treaties signed in shining halls, no smiling leaders with victory speeches and promises of peace. There was just quiet, a silence earned in blood. The rebellion didn't collapse, it simply paused. After Echo was destroyed, Earth fell into something between fear and fatigue. They pulled back the fleets, recalled black ops teams, shuttered comms they once used to control the narrative. The Terran High Command issued no further statements. The Prime Administrator disappeared. Some said she resigned, others said she was cleaned up by the very machine she built. Whatever the truth, Earth stopped talking, and that silence was louder than any weapon. The Fury limped into orbit above Hera's fall 2 weeks after the last known conflict. Its hull was patched with mismatched steel, fires still smoldered in its vent lines, but it flew. That alone made it a legend. Rain Hail stepped off the ramp in front of thousands, soldiers, farmers, engineers, pirates, children, people. They didn't cheer. They just watched him like a man made of ash and steel and regret. He stood on the platform, looked at them all, then finally spoke. "This isn't over." A murmur ran through the crowd. "Earth hasn't changed. It's only afraid, and fear doesn't last forever." He looked skyward, eyes narrowing. "So, I'm not asking you to trust them. I'm asking you to watch them." He paused. "And when they forget what they've done, remind them. It wasn't a surrender. It wasn't a war cry. It was something rarer, a warning from a man who had nothing left to lose." The days that followed were strange. The Fury was grounded for the first time in years. Repairs were finally possible. Rest was no longer treason. Rain walked among the survivors like a ghost in his own life. Children stared at him like a myth. Some reached out to touch his armor. He didn't smile, but he never pulled away. Makarov took over communications. Ashwin coordinated colony defense realignments. The rebellion fractured into independent sectors. No more single command. No hierarchy to topple. They weren't building an empire. They were building a warning system. One Earth couldn't invade. But for Rain, none of it mattered. Not really. He sat on the edge of a crater one night, staring at the stars, the same sky that had burned so many homes. His body was healing, but the silence inside him was heavier than before. Echo had wounded him deeper than knives could reach, because Echo had shown him something terrifying, that he was still capable of becoming that thing if he gave himself to the mission. Again if he forgot names, faces. Promises if he became efficient. Marav joined him quietly, handing over a tin cup of something hot. Still don't sleep, he asked. Rain shook his head. Marav sat down beside him. Word is Earth's opening diplomatic channels. Again, nothing official but feelers. Rain didn't look up. Of course they are. They'll want someone to speak for us. You're better at words. Makarov chuckled. Yeah, but I didn't burn an empire. A long pause followed, then you thinking about disappearing. Rain didn't answer right away, then finally thinking about whether staying means repeating myself. 3 days later, a ship landed outside the command hub of Hera's Fall, sleek. Silver, no military markings. Out stepped a woman Rain hadn't seen in 10 years, Commander Ayatovan, once his now a Terran peace envoy. She didn't come with bodyguards. She came with paper, printed documents. In her hands, old school, diplomatic. Cautious, she requested one thing: let us talk, just you and me. They met in a quiet chamber, no recording devices, no assistants, just 2 chairs, a bottle of cheap whiskey between them, dust floating in late light. Ella looked older, weathered, not broken but close. Rain hadn't changed, not where it counted. She started first. I'm not here to apologize. Rain nodded, didn't think you were, but I will say this, she added. You were right. That got his attention. About what? She stared into her glass. About Vesta, about the cover-up, about what the system had become. He waited. But you were also wrong, she said softly, about what burning it all down would fix. Rowan leaned back. So go on. Tell me how Earth forgives me. Aya looked at him. We don't, he smirked. Honest, I respect that, but she said, some of us understand you now, and Ella pulled out a data chip, set it on the table. Inside is a proposal, peace treaty, no a bribe, no it's a trap. Then it's a future, she said. Rain narrowed his eyes. You think I want that? No, she said quietly, but I think you want someone else to have it. That stopped him because she was right. Later he opened the file. Inside, Earth's full plan to decentralize colonial command, seat autonomy, recognize independent systems, and dismantle Project Ember. In short, everything he'd bled for in writing, but with one condition: Rain Hale must go dark, disappear, become a name in the wind. Not a martyr, not a general, just gone. He didn't respond that night, didn't speak to Ire again. He just sat on the edge of the crater until the sun rose. Marav found him the next morning. Already packed. You sure? Rain nodded. If I stay, I become the reason they strike again. Where will you go? Where they can't follow. You want us to believe they'll honor this treaty? No, Rain said. I want them to know what happens if they don't. He handed Marav a sealed file. What is it? Failsafe. If I die, if they lie, if they try again. Marav nodded. Not goodbye then, he said. Ron offered the faintest smile. Just a delay. He boarded a one-man scout ship, no destination. Filed, no beacon, just stars, and left. No ceremony, no final words, just a quiet departure from the legend he'd become. Years passed and people began to forget the details. They remembered the name, the war, the voice on the transmissions, but no one could say where he went. Some said he died, others said he was building a second Fury somewhere deep in the black. But most, they just whispered a single phrase: when governments got too bold, too loud, too cruel, careful who you burn. Rain Hale's still out there, and sometimes in the dark of space when corrupt ships vanish, when secret labs explode, when dictators go missing. No one asks why, they just remember.